The forest outside Pine Haven had always been Finn Mercer's sanctuary. After leaving the coastal city 3 years ago, he had built a quiet life in the mountains, where tall evergreens touched clouds and streams sang over smooth rocks. His cabin sat nestled between 2 peaks, far from the noise of civilization. He preferred it that way. The world had taken enough from him already. That night, the sky tore open. Finn was chopping wood behind his cabin when he saw it. A streak of violet fire screaming across the darkness, followed by a sound like thunder being ripped apart. The object crashed somewhere deep in the western valley, sending tremors through the ground beneath his boots. Birds scattered from trees in panic. The forest fell silent afterward, as if holding its breath. He should have stayed home. Common sense told him that much. But curiosity was a stubborn companion, and Finn grabbed his flashlight and emergency pack before heading down the narrow trail into the valley. The night air grew colder as he descended, his breath forming clouds in the beam of his light dot. It took him nearly an hour to reach the crash site. When he did, his heart nearly stopped. The crater was 20 feet wide, still smoking with strange purple embers that floated upward like reverse rain. In the center lay what looked like a pod made of crystalline metal that shifted colors in the moonlight. It was cracked open like an egg, pieces scattered across scorched earth. And there, half buried in soft dirt, was her. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with skin that shimmered between pale blue and silver, depending on how the light touched it. Her hair was long and white, flowing around her like liquid starlight. She wore something that resembled armor, but moved like fabric, torn and burned in several places. Blood that glowed faintly gold seeped from wounds on her shoulder and side, but it was her face that stopped him cold. Despite the alien features, the slight glow of her skin, the way her closed eyes seemed to have tiny stars swimming beneath the lids, she looked painfully vulnerable. She looked scared even in unconsciousness. Finn knelt beside her, his medic training from years ago kicking in automatically. He checked her pulse, or what he hoped was a pulse. There was a rhythm beneath his fingers, faint but steady. Her breathing was shallow. She was alive but fading fast. He didn't think. He just acted. Wrapping her carefully in his jacket, Finn lifted her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing, like carrying moonlight itself. The journey back up the mountain was brutal. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned, but he didn't stop. Something told him that if he didn't get her to shelter soon, she would die under the cold mountain star's dot. By the time he reached his cabin, dawn was breaking pink and gold over the peaks. Finn kicked open his door and carried her inside, laying her gently on his bed. He worked quickly, cleaning her wounds with warm water and bandaging them as best he could with supplies meant for humans. Her blood stopped glowing after a while, fading to a soft shimmer dot as he worked. He noticed details. Her hands had 6 fingers, long and delicate. Her ears tapered to gentle points. When he accidentally brushed against her arm, her skin felt like cool silk. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest ache with something he couldn't name. Hours passed. Finn sat in a chair beside the bed, watching her breathe. Exhaustion pulled at him, but he refused to sleep. What if she woke up terrified? What if she needed help? What if this was all some strange dream brought on by mountain isolation? But it wasn't a dream. When her eyes finally opened, Finn nearly fell out of his chair. Her irises were the color of deep space, black with swirls of purple and tiny points of light that actually moved like distant galaxies. She stared at him for a long moment, confusion and fear flickering across her delicate features. Then she tried to sit up, gasped in pain, and fell back against the pillows. "Easy," Finn said softly. Raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe. You crashed in the forest. I brought you here." She watched him warily, her strange eyes studying every detail of his face. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes, melodic and layered with harmonics that human vocal cords couldn't produce. "You are human," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, my name is Finn. What's yours?" She hesitated, as if debating whether to trust him. Finally, she answered. "Rhea. My name is Rhea of Celestra." "Celestra," Finn repeated. "Is that your planet?" "Was," she corrected, sadness filling her voice. "My world burned. The Vrakan Dominion destroyed it 6 cycles ago. I am one of the last." Finn felt his stomach tighten. He knew that look in her eyes. He had seen it in mirrors for years after the accident that took his family. It was the look of someone carrying ghosts. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Rhea turned her face away, staring at the wooden ceiling of his cabin. "Why did you help me?" "Your kind fears what they do not understand. You should have left me to die." "Maybe," Finn admitted. "But I couldn't. No one should die alone in the dark." Something shifted in her expression. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened slightly. She looked back at him, really looked, and Finn felt as if she was seeing straight through to his bones. "You have lost much too," she said softly. "I can see it in your eyes. You carry your own stars of sorrow." Finn swallowed hard. He wasn't used to being seen so clearly. "Yeah, I guess I do." They sat in silence as morning light filled the cabin, two broken souls from different worlds, finding unexpected shelter in each other's presence. Outside, the forest began to wake. And far above, in the cold depths of space, ships with dark intentions turned their gaze toward Earth. 3 days passed in the mountain cabin, and the world between Finn and Rhea began to shift like continents, finding new positions. She healed faster than any human could, her alien biology knitting wounds closed with threads of light that pulsed beneath her skin. By the second morning, she could sit up without gasping. By the third, she could walk slowly around the small space, touching things with careful curiosity. Finn watched her explore his simple life with wonder in her galaxy eyes. She held his coffee mug like it was a precious artifact, ran her fingers along the spines of his books, stood mesmerized before the fireplace as flames danced and crackled. Everything about Earth seemed to fascinate her, even the ordinary things he had long stopped noticing. "Your world is so green," she said one afternoon, standing at the window. "Celestra was mostly crystal and light. We grew our food in cultivation towers that reached the clouds. But this, trees and soil and wild things growing wherever they please, it's beautiful chaos." Finn smiled from where he sat mending one of her torn garments. The fabric was unlike anything he had encountered, repairing itself slowly where his stitches held it together. "I guess I never thought about it that way. Always seemed pretty orderly to me." "Because you were born into it." Rhea turned to face him, leaning against the window frame. The afternoon sun made her skin shimmer like pearl. "When you lose your home, you see all other worlds with new eyes. Every small detail becomes precious." The sadness in her voice made Finn set down his work. "Tell me about Celestra. What was it like before the war?" Rhea was quiet for a long moment, her gaze distant. Then she began to speak, and her words painted pictures in the air between them. She told him about cities that floated on clouds of crystallized energy, where buildings sang in harmonies that changed with the seasons. She described the festival of 7 moons, when her people would gather in the grand plaza and their skin would glow in unison, creating waves of light visible from space. She spoke of her family, her mother who was a stellar navigator, her father who composed symphonies using the frequencies of stars, her younger brother who had dreamed of becoming a healer. "They died in the first wave of attacks," she said softly. "The Vrakan don't believe in mercy. They wanted our technology, our knowledge of dimensional travel. When we refused to surrender it, They burned everything. Finn moved to stand beside her at the window, close but not touching. How did you escape? My mother put me in an evacuation pod. She programmed it to jump through 12 different dimensional folds to hide my trail. I was supposed to reach the colony on Antares Prime. Rhea's voice cracked slightly. But something went wrong. The pod malfunctioned during the last jump. I ended up here, in your solar system, crashing into your forest. And now? Now I'm hunted. She turned to look at him directly. The Vraken track all survivors. They fear we'll rebuild, come back stronger. They won't stop searching until every Celestian is dead. A chill ran down Finn's spine that had nothing to do with the mountain air. Are they coming here? Eventually. My pod's energy signature would have been detected. They're probably already scanning nearby systems. She reached out and touched his hand gently, her cool skin soft against his. I should leave soon, Finn. I've put you in danger just by being here. But Finn closed his fingers around hers, surprising himself with the gesture. Where would you go? You're still healing. Your ship is destroyed. I don't know, she admitted, but I cannot let you die because of me. You've shown me more kindness than I deserve. Everyone deserves kindness, Finn said firmly. Especially people who've lost everything. Something changed in Rhea's eyes then. The wariness that had lived there since she woke began to melt, replaced by something warmer. She stepped closer, and Finn became aware of how small she was compared to him, how delicate. Yet there was strength in her too, a core of steel wrapped in starlight. Why are you really here alone on this mountain? She asked quietly. You avoid talking about your past. Finn looked away, jaw tightening. It's not an interesting story. Tell me anyway. You know all my ghosts know. He was silent for so long that Rhea thought he might not answer. And, slowly, the words began to come. I had a wife, Emma, and a daughter, Sophie. She was 7, had her mother's laugh and my stubborn streak. Finn's voice was rough, each word costing him. 3 years ago, we were driving home from Sophie's birthday party. A truck ran a red light. Emma and Sophie died instantly. I walked away with barely a scratch. Rhea's hand tightened around his. I couldn't stay in the city after that. Everything reminded me of them. The schools, the parks, the restaurants where we used to eat. So I came here, to the middle of nowhere, where I could just exist without being the guy everyone pitied. He finally looked at Rhea, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I thought I wanted to be alone, but maybe I was just afraid of losing anyone else. Oh, Finn, Rhea whispered. She moved closer still, resting her forehead against his chest. Her height made the gesture natural, intimate. We are both ghosts, aren't we? Walking through worlds that don't feel like home anymore. Finn wrapped his arms around her carefully, as if she might break. But she didn't. She pressed closer, and he felt her heartbeat against his ribs, faster than a human heart, like the wings of a hummingbird. They stood like that as shadows lengthened across the cabin floor. 2 wounded souls holding each other up, finding unexpected comfort in shared grief. That night, Rhea taught Finn about the stars. They sat on his porch wrapped in blankets as she pointed out constellations he had never noticed. Telling him their names in her language sounds like music and mathematics combined. She showed him where Celestra had been, a region of space invisible to human eyes, but burned into her memory forever. Do you believe in fate? She asked as meteors streaked across the sky. I used to, Finn said, before the accident. Now I don't know what I believe. Rhea was quiet, then said, my people believe that souls recognize each other across time and space, that we find who we're meant to find, even if the universe has to break itself apart to bring us together. Is that what happened here? She turned to look at him, her face luminous in the starlight. I think maybe it did. I think maybe I was supposed to crash in your forest. Supposed to find you. Finn felt his breath catch. There was something in her eyes, something that made his broken heart remember how to beat faster. But before he could respond, a sound split the night. A distant hum, mechanical and wrong, coming from the valley below. Rhea stood instantly, her body tensing. They're here. The Vraken scouts. They found me. Finn rose beside her, his mind racing. How long do we have? Hours, maybe less. She looked at him, fear and determination warring in her expression. You need to run, Finn. Get as far from here as you can. But Finn shook his head, already moving toward the cabin. We run together. I'm not losing anyone else. Not tonight. Not you. Rhea stared at him, and something broke open in her face. Relief, gratitude, and something deeper. Something neither of them had names for yet. Then we run, she agreed. They gathered supplies quickly, filling packs with food, water, and whatever weapons Finn had. As they worked, the humming grew louder, closer. Lights began to appear through the trees, cold and blue, sweeping methodically up the mountain. Finn grabbed Rhea's hand. There's a cave system on the north ridge. Old mining tunnels. If we can reach them, we might be able to hide. She nodded, trust absolute in her eyes. Together, they slipped into the forest as the first Vraken patrol drones crested the ridge behind them, their lights cutting through the darkness like knives. The mining tunnels were older than Finn had remembered, carved into the mountain decades ago when prospectors still believed fortune could be found in these peaks. Now they served a different purpose, shelter for two fugitives running from horrors beyond Earth's understanding. Finn led Rhea deep into the network of passages, his flashlight cutting through absolute darkness. Water dripped somewhere in the distance, each echo bouncing off stone walls like whispered warnings. Rhea moved silently beside him, her eyes adjusting to the dark better than his, occasionally touching his arm to guide him around obstacles he couldn't see. They traveled for hours, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the surface. Finally, in a wider chamber where ancient mining equipment lay rusting and forgotten, they stopped to rest. Finn set down his pack and checked his supplies. 2 days of food if they rationed carefully. 3 bottles of water. His hunting rifle with 1 box of ammunition. Against alien technology that could cross galaxies, it felt laughably inadequate. Rhea sank against the wall, exhaustion finally showing on her face. The glow of her skin had dimmed, and Finn realized with concern that she was pushing herself too hard, still not fully healed. Rest, he said gently, sitting beside her. I'll keep watch. You need rest too, she protested weakly. I'll sleep after you do. She smiled at that, a small sad curve of her lips. Always protecting, even when you should be saving yourself. Finn looked at her, really looked at her in the dim glow of his flashlight. Dirt smudged her cheek. Her white hair was tangled with leaves and debris from their escape through the forest. She looked nothing like the ethereal being who had crashed into his world days ago. She looked real, vulnerable, human in all the ways that mattered. I made a choice when I carried you out of that crater, he said quietly. I'm not abandoning it now. Rhea reached out and took his hand, threading her 6 fingers through his 5. You're an impossible man, Finn Mercer. Soft-hearted and stubborn. Probably why I ended up alone on a mountain. You're not alone anymore. The weight of those words settled between them like gravity shifting. Finn felt his chest tighten with emotions he thought had died with his family. Fear, yes, but also something bright and terrifying. Hope. Rhea, he started, then stopped, not sure how to say what was building inside him. But she understood. She always seemed to understand. She shifted closer, resting her head on his shoulder. And Finn wrapped his arm around her, holding her as if she was the most precious thing in any universe. "I know," she whispered. "I feel it too." They sat like that in the darkness, two hearts beating in rhythms that were learning to synchronize. Sleep came eventually, pulling them both under. Finn dreamed of stars and faces he had loved, all blending together into something new and strange. When he woke, hours later, Rhea was still tucked against him, her breathing soft and even. He was about to close his eyes again when he heard it. A sound that didn't belong in the tunnels. A mechanical whir, faint but growing closer. Finn was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Rhea woke at his movement, her warrior instincts kicking in immediately. "They found us," she breathed. "How is that possible?" "We covered our tracks. The Vraken have tracking technology beyond your understanding. They can follow life signs, energy signatures." Her face went pale. "They're tracking me. My biology gives off frequencies that their sensors can detect." A blue light began to glow at the far end of the tunnel, accompanied by the clicking of metal appendages on stone. Whatever was coming, it was close. Finn grabbed their packs. "There's another exit, a vertical shaft that leads to the eastern ridge. It's dangerous, but it's our only chance." They ran through the tunnels, Finn's light bouncing wildly as they navigated the maze of passages. Behind them, the mechanical sounds multiplied. Not one drone, but several, converging on their position. They reached the vertical shaft, a narrow chimney of rock that climbed 50 feet to the surface. Rusted iron rungs lined one side, remnants of the old mining operation. "Can you climb?" Finn asked urgently. Rhea looked up at the shaft, then at him. "Yes, but Finn, we need to talk about what happens next." "We can talk when we're not about to die." "No." She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Listen to me. Even if we escape now, they'll keep coming. They'll never stop. And every moment I'm with you, I'm putting you in danger. I don't care about the danger, but I do." Her eyes were bright with tears that caught the light like diamonds. "I care about you, Finn, more than I should. More than is wise for either of us." The mechanical sounds grew louder. They had seconds, not minutes. "Then we figure it out together," Finn said desperately. "We find a way to hide you, or fight them, or I don't know, but we do it together." Rhea shook her head slowly. "There's another option. The Vraken want me, not you. If I lead them away, give myself up, you'll be safe." "Absolutely not." Finn's voice was steel. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself. It's not your choice to make. Like hell it isn't." The first drone emerged from the tunnel, a sleek mechanical horror covered in sensors and weapons. Its blue scanning light swept over them, and a high-pitched tone filled the air as it locked onto Rhea. Time seemed to slow. Finn saw the weapon on the drone's arm begin to glow, charging for a shot. He saw Rhea's face, beautiful and determined, as she prepared to push him aside and surrender herself. He saw the future splitting into paths, one where she died and he lived with another loss carved into his soul, and one where they both died, but at least died together. And then he saw a third path. Finn raised his rifle and fired, the sound deafening in the confined space. The bullet struck the drone's sensor array, and the machine jerked backward, sparks flying. It wasn't destroyed, but it was damaged, confused. "Climb now," he shouted at Rhea. She hesitated only a moment, then started up the shaft, her movements quick and sure despite her exhaustion. Finn fired again, keeping the drone back, then grabbed the rungs and followed. More drones poured in too. The chamber below, their lights creating a galaxy of blue stars in the darkness. Weapons began to fire, energy bolts that scorched the rock around them, filling the air with the smell of burning stone. Finn climbed faster than he thought possible, his muscles screaming, his lungs burning. Above him, Rhea reached the top and pulled herself onto the surface. She immediately reached back down to help him. Their hands clasped. She pulled. He climbed. An energy bolt struck the rock inches from his head, and Finn felt the heat sear across his cheek. He didn't stop. Couldn't stop. With Rhea's help. He hauled himself over the edge and onto the mountain ridge. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. It was the most beautiful thing Finn had ever seen, because it meant they were still alive. They ran from the shaft opening, just as drones began to emerge behind them. But here, in the open air with room to maneuver, they had a chance. Rhea suddenly stopped, turning to face the pursuing machines. She raised her hands, and her skin began to glow, brighter than Finn had ever seen it. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Buying us time." Her voice was strained. "There's a Celestian outpost 3 miles north. An old listening station we established years ago. If it still has power, I can use it to send a distress signal to what's left of my people. Can they help? I don't know. But it's our only chance." Light exploded from Rhea's palms, a wave of pure energy that slammed into the drones and sent them tumbling backward. But the effort cost her. She swayed, and Finn caught her before she fell. "I've got you," he said, lifting her into his arms just like he had that first night. He ran toward the north, following her whispered directions as more drones emerged from the tunnels behind them. His legs felt like lead. His lungs were on fire. But he didn't stop. Wouldn't stop. The listening post appeared through the trees, a small structure covered in camouflage netting and overgrown with vines. It looked abandoned, but when Rhea pressed her hand to a panel beside the door, it hummed to life. They stumbled inside. The interior was filled with technology that made Finn's head spin, all glowing screens and crystalline interfaces. Rhea went immediately to the main console, her fingers flying over controls. "The signal needs 60 seconds to reach full power," she said urgently. "Can you hold them off?" Finn looked at his rifle, at the dozen rounds he had left, at the army of drones converging on their position outside. The math was simple and brutal. "Yeah," he lied. "I can hold them." He took position at the door, rifle ready. The first drones appeared at the tree line, and he fired, each shot counting, each one bringing an enemy down. But for every one he destroyed, 2 more appeared. 40 seconds left. A drone got past his defense, its weapon charging. Finn tackled it, wrestling the machine to the ground, his hands searching desperately for some kind of weak point. He found a seam in its armor and jammed his hunting knife deep into its circuitry. The drone sparked and died. 20 seconds. More drones rushed the entrance. Finn fired until his rifle clicked empty, then grabbed the dead drone's severed arm and used it as a club, smashing anything that came close. 10 seconds. A shot got through, catching Finn in the shoulder. Pain exploded white-hot through his body. He fell to his knees, but stayed in the doorway, blocking it with his body. 5 seconds. "Finn!" Rhea's voice, terrified and beautiful. Console behind her erupted in light, a beam of pure energy shooting up through the roof and into the sky. The signal was sent, and then everything went white. When Finn's vision cleared, he was lying on his back, Rhea kneeling over him. But they weren't alone. The sky above was filled with ships, elegant vessels that looked like they were carved from opal and moonlight. Celestian ships. "They came," Rhea sobbed, her tears falling onto his face like rain. "My people came. You're safe. We're safe." Finn reached up with his good arm and touched her cheek. "Told you we'd figure it out together." She laughed through her tears, a sound like music. Then she leaned down and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. Around them, Celestian soldiers were engaging the Vracan drones, their superior technology making quick work of the enemy. Medical personnel rushed to Finn's side, there, hands glowing as they began to heal his wound with the same light Rhea had used days ago. "What happens now?" Finn asked as they worked out. Rhea took his hand, holding it tight. "Now we heal, both of us. And then, if you want, you come with me. See the stars. Meet what's left of my people. Help us rebuild. Leave Earth? Or I stay here. With you. Learn to love green forests and coffee mugs and all the beautiful chaos of your world." She smiled, radiant despite the dirt and exhaustion. "I don't care where we are, Finn. I just know I don't want to be anywhere without you." Finn looked at her, this impossible girl who had fallen from the stars into his isolated life, and reminded him what it meant to feel. To love, to fight for something beyond just surviving. "Together," he said firmly. "Wherever we go together." "Together," she agreed, as Celestian ships filled the sky and dawn broke fully over the mountains. Finn Mercer made peace with his ghosts. Emma and Sophie would always be part of him, scars on his heart that would never fully heal. But scars were proof of survival, proof that love had existed and mattered. And now, impossibly, love had found him again in the form of a silver-skinned girl from a dead world who saw him not as broken, but as whole. The universe had indeed broken itself apart to bring them together. And from those broken pieces, they would build something new, something that could survive anything, even the stars themselves.